Somewhere on the Great Plains, at -30 degrees Celsius, a family of 5 has only hours to build shelter before darkness falls. Skin can freeze within minutes, and the winter winds can kill the unprotected before sunrise. In a place this severe, survival depends not only on strength, but on memory, preparation, and knowledge refined across generations. For hours, they move across the snow-covered plains, 5 figures against a world of white. The father rides at the center, older now, but still the one everyone watches. Around him are his 4 children, 3 sons and 1 daughter. Only days earlier they had lost their mother after a long winter illness. Her absence is felt in every silence. But winter does not wait for grief. By late afternoon, the family reaches a sheltered rise near a low formation of rocks. They are not wandering blindly. They have come to a place prepared before the storms, where supplies had been hidden from the wind. Beside the rocks, beneath snow and hidden coverings, are poles, bundled skins, rope, and small items left for exactly this kind of night. On the open plains, such preparation could mean the difference between life and death. The storm has weakened. Snow still falls, but the violent wind has calmed enough for work. The father studies the sky and knows there is not much time before darkness. He sends the 2 older sons out to gather fuel, not only wood, which is scarce here, but dried grass, brush, and dried buffalo dung, anything that will burn long enough to keep a fire alive. In winter, fuel is as precious as food. If they return empty-handed, the night becomes harder. Without flame, even the strongest shelter can become nothing more than a frozen shell. 3 remain behind: the father, the youngest son, and the daughter. Together they begin the work their mother once led with practiced hands. Because among many Plains nations, women were the primary experts in raising, owning, maintaining, and organizing the Tipi household. They knew how the hides should be folded, how the poles should be placed, how the inner lining should hang, and how to make a shelter breathe without losing its warmth. First come the long poles. They begin by lifting and crossing them high above the ground, forming the first support before the structure is fully bound together. More poles are added one by one, spreading outward into a strong cone. The structure rises quickly from the snow, light enough to move, yet strong enough to stand against the brutal winds of the plains. Then come the hides. Buffalo skins, already scraped, softened, and sewn together, are pulled around the frame and fastened tight. These are not simply walls. They are weather-resistant material, shaped by skill, labor, and generations of experience. The daughter works carefully with the lower edges, sealing gaps where cold air could cut through. The youngest son clears snow from the center and prepares the fire pit. The father guides the placement of the cover, leaving the smoke opening above. As evening darkens, the older boys return on horseback, carrying bundles of fuel secured behind their saddles. Soon, the first sparks catch. A small flame grows in the center of the lodge. Heat begins to climb upward, and the shelter slowly comes alive. But the true genius of the teepee is not only that it stands, it works. Inside, an additional lining is hung along the walls, creating a hidden layer of still air between the outer cover and the inner space. That trapped air becomes insulation, much like the layers in modern winter clothing. Cold air enters low near the ground, warms as it reaches the fire, and rises toward the smoke hole above. Outside, the plains fall into darkness. Inside, the family gathers close to the fire. They warm their hands, dry their clothing, and share what food remains: strips of dried meat, fat, and stored provisions carried through the season. Their mother is gone, but her knowledge is still present in every knot, every hide, every pole, and every careful decision. The daughter watches closely. The knowledge of the lodge is now passing to her. By nightfall, the teepee stands complete against the snow, large enough for all five, glowing softly in the frozen landscape. Beyond it, the wind begins to rise again, but this time the family is not exposed to the open plain. They have walls, fire, insulation, and each other. What many outsiders once saw as a simple tent was, in reality, a portable survival system refined over centuries. On the Great Plains, life in winter was never easy, but with knowledge, preparation, and the strength of family, people learned how to build warmth in a world that could kill before morning.
For a Native American family, building a longhouse began with choosing the right place. The builders looked for firm ground near forests, water, and fields, where many people could live safely together. Once the place was chosen, the area had to be cleared. Brush, roots, grass, and loose stones were removed, leaving a flat space where the long wooden home could slowly take shape. The longhouse was not made for only one small family. It was designed for several related families of the same clan, living together under one roof and sharing daily work. The builders gathered young trees and strong saplings from the forest. These were easier to bend than thick old trunks, making them useful for the long, curved frame of the house. Rows of wooden posts were placed into the ground on both sides of the future building. Each post had to stand firmly because it would support the frame from end to end. Flexible poles were bent across the top, connecting one side of the house to the other. Slowly, the roof began to form a rounded shape that could shed rain and snow. Horizontal poles were tied along the sides of the frame. These strengthened the walls and helped hold the structure together, almost like the ribs of a large wooden shelter. The builders used natural cord made from plant fibers or inner bark. Every joint had to be tied tightly because the longhouse needed to survive wind, storms, and winter cold. Large sheets of bark were prepared for the walls and roof. Elm bark was especially useful because it could be removed in wide pieces and fastened over the wooden frame. The bark sheets were placed carefully across the outside of the longhouse. Each layer helped block rain, wind, and cold air, turning the open frame into a protected home. Doors were made at both ends of the building. These openings allowed people to enter from either side and helped fresh air move through the long, narrow space. Inside, the longhouse was divided into family sections. Sleeping platforms and benches were built along the walls, while upper areas were used to store food, tools, and supplies. Several families shared the same central fires. The hearths gave warmth, light, and a place for cooking, while smoke escaped through openings left in the roof above. Life inside the longhouse was built around community. Families worked, cooked, repaired tools, told stories, raised children, and prepared for difficult seasons while staying close to one another. The final work was careful and practical. Extra bark was tied down, gaps were sealed, sleeping areas were prepared, and storage spaces were arranged for food and tools. When the work was finished, the longhouse stood as more than a shelter. It became a place for family life, protection, teaching, cooking, resting, and gathering through harsh weather. At last, forest materials had become a living home. What began as saplings, bark, cord, and careful hands turned into a strong Native American longhouse, built for community and survival. For a southwestern Pueblo community, An adobe home first required selecting suitable land. Builders searched for dry, sunlit ground near water, clay, and useful stone, where work could begin. The land had to be practical for daily life. A good location offered farming space, protection from harsh weather, and enough natural materials to build strong walls that could last for years. Before any walls were raised, the ground was cleared and leveled. Loose stones, brush, and uneven soil were removed, creating a flat base where the house could slowly take shape. The most important material was earth itself. Builders gathered clay-rich soil, sand, straw, and small plant fibers, because these materials could be mixed together into strong adobe building blocks. Water was added to the dry earth mixture. The builders worked it by hand and foot, pressing, turning, and blending the mud until it became thick, heavy, and ready to shape. The adobe mixture was pressed into simple wooden molds. Each brick had to be formed carefully, then lifted out and placed in the sun to dry slowly and harden. While the bricks dried, stones were gathered for the base of the walls. A stone foundation helped keep the lower adobe blocks away from moisture and made the building stronger. When enough bricks were ready, the walls began to rise. Builders placed each adobe block by hand, using wet mud mortar to hold the rows firmly together. Thick adobe walls were raised one layer at a time. Their size helped protect the people inside from heat during the day and cold during desert nights. As the walls grew higher, the builders left openings for doorways and small windows. These openings allowed light and air inside, while keeping the home protected from harsh weather. Strong wooden roof beams were placed across the top of the walls. These beams supported the roof and helped tie the heavy adobe structure together from side to side. Smaller sticks, reeds, or brush were laid across the roof beams. This created a layered surface that could hold packed earth and protect the rooms below. The roof was covered with mud and earth, then smoothed by hand. Once dry, it became a flat, strong surface that helped shield the home from sun and rain. Doorways and ladders made the house useful for daily life. In some Pueblo homes, ladders helped people reach upper rooms or roof areas used for work and movement. Inside, rooms were shaped for sleeping, cooking, storage, and family work. Clay pots, baskets, tools, blankets, and food supplies were arranged along the walls and corners. The final surface was plastered with smooth adobe mud. Cracks were sealed, walls were repaired, and fresh layers were added so the home stayed strong through changing seasons. At last, earth, water, straw, stone, and careful hands had become a lasting home. The adobe house stood strong in the southwestern landscape, built for family, community, and survival.
For an eastern woodlands Native American community, building wigwams began with choosing a practical place. The builders looked for dry ground near trees, water, reeds, and open space for daily work. The location had to support family life through changing seasons. A good site offered nearby forest materials, access to water, protection from strong wind, and enough room around the home. Before the frame was built, the ground was cleared by hand. Brush, loose sticks, stones, and uneven soil were removed to create a clean circular base for the wigwam. The most important frame material was young, flexible wood. Builders gathered long saplings from nearby trees because they could bend without breaking and form the curved shape of the house. The saplings were trimmed and prepared before they were placed. Extra branches were stripped away, bark fibers were saved for tying, and the strongest poles were set aside for the main frame. The builders marked a circle on the ground where the wigwam would stand. Small holes were opened around the circle so the first upright saplings could be planted firmly into the earth. One by one, the main saplings were placed into the ground and bent inward. Builders worked together, pulling the flexible poles toward the center to begin forming the rounded dome. More saplings were added from different sides of the circle. Each new pole strengthened the curved frame, crossing over the others until the wigwam began to take its full shape. Horizontal support poles were tied around the frame. These ribs connected the upright saplings, made the structure stronger, and helped the walls hold their rounded form. The doorway was shaped while the frame was still open. Builders left a low entrance, tied stronger poles around it, and made sure people could move in and out easily. Covering materials were prepared beside the frame. Bark sheets, reed mats, cattail mats, brush, or woven panels were gathered and sorted so the outside of the wigwam could be protected. The builders began covering the frame from the lower sides upward. Mats and bark sheets were lifted into place, pressed against the saplings, and tied securely with natural fiber cordage. Each layer of covering overlapped the one below it. This helped rain run downward, reduced wind entering the home, and made the wigwam warmer and more protected inside. An opening was left near the top for smoke and air. The builders also prepared a simple entrance covering that could be moved aside during the day and closed during harsh weather. Inside, the room was arranged for daily life. Mats, bedding, baskets, tools, food supplies, clay pots, and a small hearth area were placed carefully around the walls. The finished wigwam could be repaired as the seasons changed. Builders tightened loose coverings, replaced damaged mats, added fresh bark, and strengthened the frame when wind or rain wore it down. At last, wood, bark, reeds, fiber, earth, and careful hands had become a useful home. The wigwam stood in the eastern woodlands landscape, built for shelter, family, and survival.
For a Diné family, building a traditional Hogan began with choosing the right place. The builders searched for dry, level ground in the southwestern landscape, near wood, stone, earth, and clean water. The location had to provide comfort throughout the seasons. A good site offered protection from strong winds, nearby natural materials, open sunlight, and enough space for family life and daily work. Before construction began, the ground was cleared by hand. Brush, loose stones, dry plants, and uneven soil were removed to create a solid base where the Hogan would stand. The builders gathered straight wooden logs and sturdy poles from nearby juniper or piñón trees. Every piece of wood was chosen carefully because it would support the strength of the entire home. Each log was prepared before construction started. Small branches were trimmed away, rough surfaces were cleaned, and the strongest timbers were selected for the main framework. The outline of the Hogan was marked on the ground. Builders arranged the foundation area and prepared the first positions where the main support logs would be raised. One by one, the heavy logs were lifted into place. Working together, the builders leaned and joined the main timbers, slowly creating the strong wooden framework that formed the Hogan's shape. Additional logs and poles were fitted around the structure. Each new piece strengthened the walls and roof frame, giving the Hogan its solid, rounded, or multi-sided form. Smaller poles were placed across the main framework to complete the roof structure. The wooden frame became tightly connected, ready to support layers of earth and natural building materials. The entrance was carefully formed on the eastern side of the Hogan. Builders secured the doorway with sturdy timbers while leaving enough space for people to enter and leave comfortably. The covering materials were gathered beside the structure. Earth, clay-rich soil, smaller branches, grass, and natural filling materials were prepared to protect the wooden frame from weather. The builders covered the wooden structure layer by layer. Earth and soil were packed tightly around the walls and roof by hand, gradually enclosing the Hogan with thick protective insulation. Every new layer was pressed firmly into place. The packed earth sealed small gaps, strengthened the walls, and helped keep the inside cool during hot days and warm during cold nights. A small opening was left near the center of the roof for smoke and fresh air. The east-facing doorway remained the main entrance, allowing light to enter the home each morning. Inside, the Hogan was arranged for everyday family life. Woven mats, blankets, baskets, clay pots, food supplies, and a small central hearth were placed carefully around the interior. The finished Hogan was maintained as the seasons changed. Builders repaired worn earth coverings, added fresh soil where needed, strengthened wooden supports, and kept the home in good condition for many years. At last, wood, earth, stone, clay, and careful hands had become a lasting home. The traditional Hogan stood proudly in the southwestern landscape, built for family, shelter, and everyday life.